afternoon, and welcome to our annual MCPS Mental Health Awareness Week virtual resource fair. I want to thank everyone for joining us during this important discussion about mental health resources in our schools and in Montgomery County. My name is Dr. Christina Connolly, and I am the Director of the Division of Psychological Services for the Montgomery County Public Schools. This topic is near and dear to my heart from growing up and listening to stories from my grandmother as a psychiatric nurse and my mother who started her career as a drug treatment therapist. As a school psychologist, I understand the need for mental health resources for many of our families who have students who attend our schools. Talking about mental health as a community is very important. We need to normalize this conversation in our community. Due to stigma, too many individuals do not seek mental health support or do not have the correct diagnosis to receive the support that they need. I have seen those who have experienced childhood trauma engage in domestic violence. I have seen students who did not receive mental health support end up in our prison system. The cycle must end. Now, to get things underway, our Associate Superintendent of Student Family Support and Engagement, Mr. Everett Davis, has a welcome message for our event today.
Good afternoon. My name is Everett Davis, and I serve as the Acting Associate Superintendent for Student Family Support and Engagement. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome you to the Mental Health Resource Fair, the last activity of Mental Health Awareness Week, which began on Monday, November 8th. This caps off a week filled with discussions about student mental health needs, educational videos for students and caregivers, and a panel of professionals sharing about available careers in mental health. Today, we have our community mental health partners here to answer questions you might have about mental health. From the MCPS homepage, please search Mental Health Week, or you may visit www.mcpsmentalhealth.org in order to view videos and resources, even after the conclusion of Mental Health Week. As I conclude, I would like to thank the members of the Student Family Support and Engagement team, particularly those in psychological services, as well as many other MCPS colleagues and community partners who have made this week a success. As part of our Be Well 365 initiative, which speaks to the physical, social, and psychological well-being of all students, all staff, and all schools, it is critical to remember that mental and emotional health is essential as we connect for student success. Thank you, be well, and enjoy the fair.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Next, I want to welcome the two co-presidents of the Montgomery County School Psychologists Association, Ms. Julia Fenner and Dr. Toria Simpson.
Hi, my name is Dr. Toria Simpson, and we are the co-presidents of the Montgomery County School Psychologists Association, and we are happy to welcome you to this year's virtual resource fair. And we are happy to sponsor this amazing opportunity for everybody in our community with MCPS.
So thank you, Mr. Davis, Ms. Fenner, and Dr. Simpson. We appreciate your charge and support for this work. I want to quickly review our highlights from this year's virtual Mental Health Awareness Week. Ms. Fenner and Dr. Simpson, what were some of your highlights this week?
Well, one of the highlights this week for me is that a lot of the videos that were pertaining to students, they can get SSL hours for watching them. So I'm really excited about that opportunity because I know that sometimes it is difficult for our students to get SSL hours, and for them to be able to gain strategies and coping skills while they're receiving SSL hours is an amazing opportunity.
One of my highlights is the different resources we have available to support mental health of students, families, as well as community members. We have various modalities in which information is shared. That includes pre-recorded videos. We have had several live events which have been student-focused, including today's resource fair, which is live. And a lot of the pre-recorded sessions are available in multiple languages, and they are geared towards students specifically, or staff, or parents as well. So there is a myriad of information on our website, as well as phone numbers that you can call if you are in need of supporting your mental health or someone near and close to you.
Next, we will hear from several county and nonprofit agencies in Montgomery County that provide mental health support in a variety of ways to our students, staff, and families. We recognize that many of you may have questions about the information that is shared, and some have already provided questions in advance. Throughout, you can post your questions in the YouTube chat box. Two of our colleagues will compile the questions so that the panelists can respond to the questions in the next section of the program. All right, so before we start to get to some of our questions, let me introduce the panelists so we can get today's resource fair underway. To get us started, I would like to introduce our first panelist, Rachel Larkin, the Director of Crisis Prevention and Intervention Services with Every Mind. Welcome, Ms. Larkin.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such a great opportunity for the community to learn what's out there for them.
Next, we will have Dr. Bernie McCann, Employee Assistance Specialist with the Montgomery County Public Schools EAP. Through the MCPS Employee Assistance Program, we provide confidential mental health information, support, and brief counseling and referrals to our 26,000 employees and their family members. Welcome, Dr. McCann.
Thanks for having me. I think it's a great opportunity to remind folks that we do have resources. We have 24/7, 365 coverage for our staff and their families, and it's an important aspect of the total mental health of our MCPS community. Thank you.
Next, we will have Ms. Kirsten Anderson, Administrator of Linkages to Learning with Montgomery County DHHS Child and Adolescent School and Community-Based Services. Welcome, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you so much for having me. We're very excited. DHHS is very excited to support MCPS in the mental health of students.
Next, we will have Ms. Gisela Martinez, who is a mental health therapist with Montgomery County DHHS, working with child and adolescent behavioral health services. Welcome, Ms. Martinez.
Good morning to all. Thank you for joining us. My name is Gisela Martinez, and I am excited to contribute to the conversation about mental health for our students and community.
Next is Ms. Catherine Royston, who is the Senior Program Coordinator for Our Minds Matter. Our Minds Matter is a student-led peer-to-peer club model designed to change school culture around mental health. Welcome.
Thank you for having us, Dr. Connolly. It's a pleasure to be here.
And next, we will have Mr. Joe Wilson, Senior Director of Mental Health Services with the Jewish Social Services Agency, or JESA. Joe, you're muted.
Oh, apologies. Good to be with you today.
Thank you. And next, we have Mr. Ben Stevenson, the Prevention and Harm Reduction Manager of Behavioral Health and Crisis Services with Montgomery County DHHS.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to be here with you today. Look forward to the conversation, and happy to share resources that we have for the school system and for the youth to participate and get involved. So thanks for having me.
And finally, we have Ms. Mobilia Rastello, who is Program Coordinator for the Children's Bereavement Department of Caring Matters. Caring Matters is a nonprofit providing bereavement support services in the county. Welcome.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to sharing with everyone about the bereavement support services we have to offer.
All right. So we want to thank everyone for joining us today. We're going to get started. I think we're going to have a great program with all of our excellent panelists here. Now we are going to transition to our question and answer section of this program. And I want to welcome Lindsay and Cherie, who have been forwarding us the questions our families and students have been asking on YouTube.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Cow, and I'm the coordinator for school counseling services. Very excited to be here today.
And I'm Sheree Price. I'm a school psychologist with MCPS and the Professional Relations Committee co-chair for the Montgomery County School Psychologists Association. It's also a pleasure to be here as well.
There have been a lot of questions coming in, so we might not get to all of them.
Once again, if you'd like to submit a question, go to the MCPS TV YouTube channel, join the show, and use the chat feature to the right of the YouTube video window.
I'll go ahead and get us started. What kind of mental health, extracurricular, or after-school activities can students get involved with?
I can answer that. So Our Minds Matter, as Dr. Connolly mentioned, is a student-led movement designed to change school culture and mental health. So right now we are located in 17 high schools in Montgomery County. We're working on soon, hopefully being able to provide a middle school program. And our clubs focus on 4 primary outcome areas. Those are increasing help-seeking behaviors, promoting pro-social skills, using positive coping mechanisms, and engaging in self-care. And so our clubs are a great space for students to connect, to foster community and connection, and also to build those coping skills when things get tough that we can resort to.
Thank you. Since COVID, it seems like it has become harder to get connected with mental health professionals and services in the community. Any suggestions on how to get the right provider or services to people when they need them? How do I know I have the right therapist?
That's a great question. I'd love to provide some information there. One thing that folks look to Jessa for is figuring out how to connect with a clinician, whether it's ours or someone else's in the community. We have several resources that folks can check out. The first thing we often direct people to do is check with your insurance company, as they may have a list of providers that are in your area that you would be able to connect with. And in fact, some insurance companies even offer to connect you directly to a provider. So we'll work with you to help find a provider that works for you. And in addition to that, if you connect with an agency or a provider, it's always important to ask not just questions related to how they do their work or the type of therapy they provide, but also for you to be able to assess a comfort level in talking with the clinician and evaluating whether or not they can be helpful to you in what you're looking to address. So certainly expertise is part of the mix there, but it's also helpful to know that you're talking with someone that may have a perspective or may have experience with some of the challenges that you're facing that you're looking for assistance with.
And I will add, for many of our students, it's oftentimes easiest to start with someone who you know. So a teacher, a counselor, someone at the school. Counselors are there to provide support. Oftentimes they have the name and number of agencies. They're aware of which agencies take insurance, which don't. And in addition, oftentimes your primary care physician, they're overlooked, but they also have resources. So those are 2 great places to start, because it can be very overwhelming and daunting, but it's not impossible.
I would love to add that I would love people to remember that your therapist is working for you. They are your partner in your mental wellness journey. So if you don't tell them everything they need to know, they really can't help you. We hear from so many students each and every day who are like, well, I haven't told my therapist I feel this way. I haven't told my therapist this happened to me. And they can't work with you if they don't know. So make sure you feel comfortable with the person you choose and can be open with them as well.
Thank you. The next question is, we've lost 2 family members due to COVID, and it's been really hard. What support can I get to my child to help them?
I'd like to answer that. So Caring Matters, we provide bereavement support services to everyone in the county, and we can do that working with the family through a workshop series we have called Family Night. And that's available at no cost, and we are running it all virtually. And families have the opportunity to come with their children and participate in a workshop facilitated by an art therapist. And within MCPS, we also run what's called Good Grief Clubs. And this is a peer support model where one of our trained facilitators works with a school counselor, and they are able to support the students in processing through that grief.
Thank you. How can we take measures to make sure that everyone feels safe and comfortable around their teachers, peers, counselor, staff, etc.?
So when we think about, the environment around our schools and what it takes in order for our students and our staff to feel comfortable, to feel safe, it goes into a concept called psychological safety. And so what things that schools can do in terms of building relationships with students, especially culturally responsive relationship building, like what are we doing to make sure that every student in the school has a trusted adult that they can go to? And this goes beyond just like, let's say, the administrator or like their teacher that's there, but there may be others in the schools, like their counselors, their school psychologists or social workers, even cafeteria workers, security staff, even a bus driver. Like, who are those individuals that student feels that they can go and talk to, and trying to just make sure that all students feel that way. So, because especially when there's something going on that's really important. So let's say if you had a student that was suicidal, who can they go to in order to go to that trusted adult and talk about it? One of our things with our MCPS's Science of Suicide Prevention Program, which is a suicide prevention initiative that we have 6th through 12th grade. And we teach kids how to act, how to acknowledge their friends' feelings, how to care for them, and how to tell a trusted adult. But one of the big steps in that program is trying to make sure, do all students have a trusted adult that they can go to? Do students feel like they have that psychological safety and that rapport building with adults in the building in order to do that? Some of that is also involved with us looking at having trauma-informed practices or trauma-informed teaching. What are the things we do to help our staff to engage in active listening skills when students are sharing some of their information that's going on with them, having empathy when we hear some of the stories that are happening, but also a big piece is trying to work with the staff, and that why we have our EAP folks here, in order to make sure that our staff members feel like things are safe and that they have somebody they can go to, because it's hard for a staff member to be able to work with a kid when they themselves are struggling. It's kind of like when you're on the plane and an emergency happens and they tell the parent to put your face mask on before helping the student or helping your child, because if you can't breathe, it's going to be really hard for you to help your child to breathe. And so a lot of those pieces, just trying to make sure we all are in good places and we teach folks skills around resiliency and adaptive coping in order to make sure that we are all psychologically well.
Amen to that, Christina. I think we sometimes think our teachers are so, super teachers, and they're people just like the rest of us. Sure, some kids are struggling and some teachers are struggling. We have to, put that support across the board, and I think that's very helpful.
The more conversations we have just like this one really make a big difference too, because the more we talk about mental health, the less scary it is. And we recognize that we all struggle sometimes. So this is a great example of how we can make the whole environment great by just having more conversations.
Thank you. The next question is, who can I meet with if I'm feeling stressed about being overwhelmed with deadlines and work? Dr. McCann, could you start with this one?
Sure. Of course, my area of expertise is employees and family members. And so that's an obvious one. We're here, we provide the service for staff and teachers. Last year, we expanded our service to 24/7, 365. We actually have a partner. And so in addition to myself and my colleagues, we have an additional provider who not only provides counseling, but also work life and family stuff, financial. So circling back to your question, thank you. I think that we can get help in many, many different places. Many of us belong to a faith community. Many of us, go home at the end of the day to our families. And it is difficult when we're kind of bottled up inside, and it's difficult to share some of those feelings. But most of the people that I've ever worked with, when they're able to do that, say, look, I'm having a tough day, or work was really stressful this week, or, I'm having difficulty with my moods. Having the ability to talk about that, family, friends, coworkers, and mental health professionals, the faith community, that's really important. And being comfortable enough to do that. We've seen a lot of changes in the stigma associated with mental health. And that's a wonderful thing. And I'm looking forward to that continuing over the years. But the more we kind of normalize that, I think Christina said that earlier, the more we normalize that, everybody gets tough days. Everybody has family members that are struggling. Everybody, a lot of teachers, they realize their students have a difficult year. And just, look, we can't really change that part. What we can change is the support and the acknowledgement that we give people around that. Thanks.
Can I add that also talking about it does really make a big difference. The hotline is free and confidential. You can call us, you can text us, you can chat with us. And talking and venting and just getting it off your chest makes a big difference. It's kind of like shaking up a bottle of soda, just like loosening the cap a little bit, lets that gas out and lets it all calm down so you don't explode. That's why our resource is available. You don't have to be in crisis. You can just be like overwhelmed or struggling or just need to, get it off your chest. So, our resource is free and available to you anytime.
I want to echo what Rachel was saying just about being able to talk about it and mentioning it to others, so that if you, as she's saying, if you keep it all bottled up, no one can help you. But if you are able to say, I'm feeling overwhelmed about this, to a teacher, to a peer, to a counselor, they can then know what's going on and are more likely to be able to help you with that and help you with coping skills, help you figure out how to sort it out, how to prioritize things, and help you through the process.
Thank you. Who do I go to if I'm someone or someone I know is experiencing bullying?
Now, especially for our students in schools, whether if you're experiencing bullying at school or even if you're experiencing cyberbullying online or on social media, we want to make sure that you go to that trusted adult. You can go to your administrator, you can go to your counselor, your psychologist, you can go to your teachers, you can go to your family. And just make sure so that you can go forth and get some of the help that you need. We do have a bullying reporting form that is online that students, families, anybody can fill out. And that information then goes to your building administrator for them to then conduct an investigation into the bullying. If for some reason that you feel like, I'm kind of scared, I don't want to do this, so I to fill out that form for them, I don't want them to know my name. We do have our anonymous tip line system, the Maryland Safe Schools tip line. And that is a mechanism. Either you can call the number or you can go on to the App Store, you can download the app. You can submit your tip if you're experiencing bullying or you have a friend who's experiencing bullying. And those tips go to staff members within MCPS. So I'm one of them that receives them, as well as folks from safety and security, and also our partners in the Montgomery County Police Department get them as well. And so this is another way of students and family members being able to report situations of bullying or other type of instances that are going on in schools to MCPS officials in order to get the help that you need. We then share that information with your building administrators for them to then conduct an investigation into the bullying. So if you or your friend is experiencing bullying, again, there are multiple ways. You can go directly to your counselor, your administrator, or staff in the building. You can fill out the bullying reporting form, and that goes directly to your administrators. You can also do it anonymously through the Maryland Safe Schools tip line. And will be added to the YouTube chat.
Again, I'd just like to shine a little light on the fact that we have 26,000 employees, and sometimes they might feel a little bullied by their associates or maybe even by, I hate to say it, but maybe even by a family member. And so it's important to realize this really cuts across our entire population. One of the things that we've noticed is a greater awareness about microaggressions. And that's kind of an interesting concept for folks because not everybody's familiar with it. And what it really means is that it's kind of like the gnats and the fleas of bullying. It's not the lions and the tigers, but it's the little comments. It's the little ways, people get mistreated, get disrespected, and things like that. And we're actually doing a couple of short videos on our website about microaggressions. But this is an important area because these kind of things, these kind of attitudes and experiences, they grind people down and they make them feel less than. And nobody wants to feel that way. We all want to be valued for who we are and what we do. And I've been fascinated by this whole discussion of microaggressions, which has really become more prominent in the last 5 years or so. And if you're not familiar with it, Google it. It's a very interesting topic, and it's an opportunity for us all to, stay on our toes and make sure that we're not inadvertently doing this to other folks, because we may not realize that sometimes our comments hurt. Thanks.
And Dr. McCann, thank you for that, because you bring up an excellent point. And so because we know bullying is a form of abuse, but also if you are a student or staff member who is experiencing issues of hate or issues of discrimination, or that we want you to be able to report those hate and bias related incidents to us as well, so that we can work through them and address them, because we know that experiencing discrimination is considered an adverse childhood experience, or an ACE. It's a form of trauma, and so we want our students, again, making our safe schools, making our climate safe in our schools. We want to make sure that when these things are happening, that you go and you share them with us, whether it's a microaggression, whether it's a more direct way of someone experiencing discrimination or hate. So please, we want to make sure that everyone, whether your family, the students, knows that you can tell us so that we can address that, because we know that we have communities, especially minoritized communities, who are experiencing issues of discrimination in our community. And so we want you to feel safe to share them with us so that we can address that situation in order to help you to feel safe in our schools.
And I just want to add that everyone is different, and what may affect or what may hurt one person may or may not hurt the other, but that in no way minimizes the impact that it can have. So I think it's just really important to not compare yourself, or it could be worse. If it bothers you, if it makes you uncomfortable, if it makes you feel bad in any way, shape, or form, you don't need to justify or rationalize it at all. I think it's just really important that we're all very different, and we all should be treated with dignity and respect. And people have different level of tolerances, but it's important that you know yourself, and if you feel uncomfortable with something that a classmate, a colleague is doing, that you know that you have a right to not tolerate that type of behavior, and that there's supports from your school administrators or from your employer to help stop that behavior.
That's absolutely right. We do have within the assistant superintendent's office, we do have an office of equity, and that's actually one of their charges. The service that I run, the employee assistance program, is totally confidential. So I would encourage anybody who feels hesitant or not quite sure, even want to talk it through. You want a friendly ear. We're happy to do that. And sometimes things are, in fact, just what they look like. And sometimes maybe there's a different approach or a measured approach we can take with those things. So, yeah, I think it's great. And I think the worst part of all this is to remain silent, because that That doesn't help anybody. I don't think. My opinion.
Thank you all so much. The next question is, how do I know if the coping skills I'm using aren't enough and if I need to seek professional help?
I'll take that one. So I kind of feel as if when it comes to utilizing your coping skills, it takes a lot of self-awareness. So being aware of like what triggers you, what impacts you in some kind of way, and then understanding that a piece of being resilient is also taking a step to saying, hey, this is a little bit too much for me and I need to, seek additional help or support from someone else. And so I think it just takes a lot of self-awareness, understanding yourself, because everyone is just like as Ella said, everyone is different. Everyone is an individual. So understanding yourself, understanding like, hey, this is overwhelming. Maybe I need to talk to someone, whether it's a friend, a teacher, or a professional or something like that, just so that you can, navigate through that murky space, because everyone has their ebbs and flows and everyone goes through things. And it's a normal part of growing up and a normal part of life. So just making sure that you're self-aware and understanding yourself, just to seek that additional help beyond just the coping skills that you utilize.
I'd like to build on that. So in paying attention to your coping skills are working for you if you're feeling like you're able to get through the things that you need to do. And if you're starting to feel like, we had a question earlier about being overwhelmed, of just not being able to handle the things that are coming. So you're not able to do your work. Maybe you're not getting along with your family. Maybe your peer relationships are suffering, feeling very disorganized. So if it's starting to affect aspects of your life, then is when your coping skills, maybe what's going on with you, maybe overwhelming your ability to cope with it at that time. And then maybe you want to look at professional support for that. If you feel like, we all have days where we're stressed and overwhelmed, but if those are happening a lot, or as I said, if it's really like your grades are starting to go down or you're losing friends or trouble with sleeping or eating, and that's going on for a period of time, that can be an indication that the coping skills are just not quite enough for what's going on with you right then, and that professional help could really help you get through that situation.
That's a great point, Kristen. I wanted to emphasize as well that idea of being aware of yourself kind of holistically. We oftentimes in mental health wellness discussions with youth and families talk about how is your sleeping and your eating and your breathing and your moving and your relating, right? Those 5 areas of life. And if you can think in those terms, right, that I haven't been able to sleep for the last week, or it's been harder for me to find time to eat healthy, or, my relationships, as you pointed out, are more stressful for me. All those are signs that perhaps the coping skills you're using are not quite enough, and you may need to ask for some or look for some additional support and resources. So I think that's a really good point.
Thank you, everyone. The next question. I don't have insurance. Can I still get help for my child?
I'd love to take that one. So Department of Health and Human Services, we've been working with MCPS for many years now. So we have 2 programs specifically to help residents who do not have insurance. The first is our Linkages to Learning program. We are in 29 schools, and Linkages to Learning offers mental health services for youth and family. So you can do individual therapy with the kid or family therapy with the kid, with the student and their family. There's also case management, and then there's community school coordination, which is bringing resources to that school community. And Linkages to Learning is designed, especially the therapy component, for those who do not have insurance or are underinsured, which means maybe they can't access therapy through their insurance. Maybe the copay is too big, the waiting list is too long, they don't have a therapist who speaks their language. The other program that we have is School and Community Youth Services. This is at 23 schools, as well as covering most of the county. So they are at schools 1 to 2.5 days a week. And it's the same thing. It provides therapy for students in high school, middle school, elementary school. And again, it's for students who do not have insurance or cannot access therapy through their insurance. And the way to access either Linkages to Learning or School and Community Youth Services is usually through the school counselor. So the school counselor will have an idea of a student who maybe needs some assistance and will work closely with the partner agencies who are providing those services and make the referral. For linkages to learning at those schools, families can also self-refer. So if for some reason the school has not identified them and referrals not been made, the family can refer themselves to that. But yes, we at Department of Health and Human Services are very happy to support the students at MCPS to be able to provide that service, because without insurance or insurance with really high copays, or you can't find it, it can be very hard to access the services. And we want to make sure that everyone in MCPS, that students can access these services.
I'd like to add too, in addition to what Kristen was saying there, that JESA is partnering with MCPS as well. We're currently in 16 schools, and we offer prevention and wellness and short-term behavioral health for individuals referred by school counselors or other referral partners we have in the building, for individuals regardless of their insurance status or ability to pay. We're able to offer them access to care as well. In addition to that, JESA does work in securing private philanthropy. So if people call us looking for looking for mental health services and do not have health insurance, we do have ways to sponsor that treatment for individuals. So outside of that program, we have that available at JESA, but also in 16 schools.
And Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services also has 2 clinics, child and adolescent behavioral health. One is located in Rockville and one is located in Silver Spring. And we provide child and family therapy as well as psychiatric services for anyone up to 18 who does not have insurance. In addition to that, there's also the Montgomery County Access to Behavioral Health Services, which is 240-777-1770. I'm going to put that in the chat, but that is the number that you can call if you are a resident of Montgomery County, a child, teenager, adult, and would like to access services regardless of what your insurance status is. They will connect you, because we do have adult behavioral health, which also serves individuals who do not have health insurance.
I'd also like to, sorry, go ahead.
I also wanted to add, for anyone who is looking for specific grief and loss related services, Caring Matters, all of our services are of no cost, and it doesn't matter if you have insurance or not, and our access to services is not time limited. So as much as a family or children or even adults want to participate in a support group, you're welcome to participate as long as it is useful to you.
Sorry about that. There's another resource in terms of insurance. If families do not have access to health insurance or have no insurance, you can contact the Primary Care Coalition. They have a program called Care for Kids, where they do provide insurance, which covers both primary care and mental health care. So it's the Primary Care Coalition of Montgomery County. I think it's pcc.org, but I'll certainly check and forward that along. But that's an organization where if you have no health insurance, you can also get some insurance through them for local care providers for both primary health care as well as mental health.
Thank you all so much. So our next questions are some similar. From 2 different students. The first question that we have from the student is, my friend is currently struggling with depression and anxiety. She's visited therapists, but I'm concerned she's having suicidal thoughts. She also wants to run away from home. I want to help, but I'm not sure what to do.
Well, I'd like to start with 2 resources. One, Ben can talk more about this as well, but the county has a really, really good website called betheone.org, BTHEONE.org, and it gives you all the information you need to help a friend who might be struggling with suicide or substance use issue. But you can also always call the hotline. About 1/3 of our calls are for people calling about other folks. We'll talk you through, what to say to your friend, how to support your friend, how to get them connected. But if you're in school, I would definitely let a counselor, a teacher, somebody else in the school system know. And it's not getting your friend in trouble. What it is getting that person the support they need. Because I can tell you on the hotline, we deal with suicide each and every day, but it's not something you can do alone. And everybody needs to have a partner in that. And so if you really, care about your friend, don't worry about them being possibly mad at you, because, you're getting them the support they need and the support you need as well too. So it can be scary and you can be worried about, them getting mad at you, but really, it is doing the best that you can for that person. But we're always available to talk about it on the hotline as well.
No, and thank you, Rachel, for that, because we really do want students to feel like they can share with school staff if they have a friend who is suicidal, and that disclosing that information, because sometimes I hear students like, well, I didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't want to get the person in trouble. I didn't want to betray their trust. They made me promise not to tell anyone. But we would really want to remind folks from our Science of Suicide Prevention program, what do we teach? We teach kids how to act, how to acknowledge their friends' feelings, how to care for them, and how to tell a trusted adult. Because let's say, for instance, you did share and your friend was mad at you. At least your friend is then getting the help that they need so they don't die by suicide. Because if they die by suicide, then they're not going to be around. And so that is, their life is more important than, just someone who may temporarily be mad. Because then again, people, especially teenagers who didn't have thoughts of suicide, and sometimes it's hard to be able to see like this is a really negative temporary situation in all of life. But we don't want people to all of a sudden make a choice to die by suicide for a temporary problem and with this permanent solution. So what can we do in order to help them to get the help that they need, and so that they can live and continue on with life? We can go get them some help, maybe even getting help from a therapist, or if they're in an immediate crisis, they may need to be hospitalized. And working with them in terms of getting the support they need at school and at home. As you can see from many of the resources and agencies that we have here today, talking about the services they have. So, because even if, let's say, someone at the school is not able to meet with you regularly, we then refer out to the agencies that have been speaking here in order to get you the long-term help that you or your friends need. And so I cannot express enough, especially now, with the pandemic. I mean, we have seen so many kids who are struggling with depression, anxiety, other kinds of mental health disorders, behavioral concerns, conflict, all sorts of things due to the impact of COVID, the impact of racial injustice. I mean, just so many different things that have been going on. And so we really want students to know that we want you to come to us. We want you to tell us if you are experiencing, or your friends are experiencing these kinds of thoughts of either self-harm or maybe harm to others, or even if somebody's harming you in terms of somebody abusing you. We really want you to be able to disclose that, share that, so that we can support you, because we don't want kids to feel like you're alone. That when you're trying to figure out what to do, like, I got to make this decision and I don't know. And, you feel very alone in that place. Talk to an adult, and that they will help you to make the right choice together.
That's it. And I want to emphasize that all of us have been trained and we welcome uncomfortable conversations. We know that it can be awkward, that it can be scary, and we're used to it. And we're excited to be able to help to make it less scary. And so I think it's really important. The more we know about the situation, the more we can understand what the student is going through, the better able we are to assess. One of the challenges that many of the students that I work with is that they're afraid to tell their parents because they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want their phone taken away. And so if I know that these are some of the concerns, then when I have a conversation with the parent, I make sure that I'm aware of that. And how can I talk to a parent in a way where the parent is going to feel comfortable, where the parent is not going to be scared? But that's only possible when I know about it. And so I think I want anyone who's watching this to know that we know that many of these conversations are going to be hard. And we're here to make it better. And we have the skills and the experience. And like Dr. Connolly said, I have in my 13 years, I have yet to see a student who ended a friendship with someone because that friend sought help for their friend. There might be some temporary moments of frustration and sadness, but many people who are hurting are so deep in their hurt and pain that they can't really see outside of it. And with time, when they're feeling better, they can understand. They might never be like, oh, I would have done it, but at the very least, they can say, I can see why you did that, you know? And I think that's very important, that when someone is hurting, oftentimes they're not going to be able to make the decisions that they could or would, but that's when having a friend or a trusted adult to help you is important. And having us there, we're a team, we're going to work together. And I just encourage everyone to know that we are ready to have those tough conversations with you to get you the help that you need.
I would also love to, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just that your friends probably told you for a reason, and that so if they really didn't want anyone to know, they wouldn't have told you. And so so in telling you, I think there's sort of like, is it subconsciously, do they know that maybe you might tell someone and you might get help for them? And so even if they are saying, don't tell anyone, I'm too scared or whatever, that they are still saying it to someone, which in a way is saying, I think I want some help for this. Otherwise they wouldn't have said it.
And I will say that the young person is definitely utilizing the steps that we teach and be the one, as far as making sure that they're at least being there for their friend. So I think that person is really doing a great job of being there for their friend, and then helping them connect with other resources that might be helpful to that person. So I think everyone on the panel kind of alluded to those steps and utilizing, you know, external factors to kind of help their friend to navigate through that murky situation. So being there, helping them connect, and then just being that support and being that sounding board and say, hey, I'm here for you. And just like, I think it was Kirsten or someone said that no one has ever really like let a friend go because they, you know, sought help for that friend or something like that. So just making sure that, you know, just being there and staying present.
Thank you all so much. And the second student wrote, my friend doesn't want me to tell anyone that they're struggling with their mental health. How do we handle these situations? Especially in this case, the student is not a current MCPS student.
So we still want the students to come and to share with us what's going on, and that even if it's someone who attends a school outside of MCPS, when I was a school psychologist before becoming the head of psychological services, I've had situations like this, and working with the student, try to figure out, so where is your friend located, and seeing like, what can I do to find which school they attend, where they attended, and contact people at that school in order to get them some help, or if they have like the friend's home number, you know, being able to share that. But also, let's say if it's someone who has an anonymous username and it's online, and or maybe they live in another country or something else. I mean, because, you know, kids, like, let's say kids on Discord, like they're talking to folks from all over. And so sometimes your online friend is, you know, you may not know much about their personal situation. But a lot of times, especially some of our social media platforms, they have ways of being able to tag like a comment or something that you deem to be, you know, like concerning. Like if they say something about suicidal ideation, for example, you can then flag it in the social media platform system in order for someone from the social media group to then be able to contact them, share resources with them. You can also share with them the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. And that's another way, especially if they're in another area of the country, that they can contact that tip line, which is 24 hours, 7 days a week, and get some of the help that they need through that thing. But the biggest thing, you know, making sure that your friend knows that you care, and that trying to see if they'll give you information about their family or someone else that you can go to, someone either at their school or someone in their household that can provide support to them. Just keep trying. And that person may not disclose that, but again, if not, then go to some of the social media functions that allow for you to tag comments that are concerning.
I'd also like to reiterate something that Ms. Larkin said and Dr. Connolly, is that there are a bunch of national and regional and local resources that are there that are free 24/7 at your disposal. And we hear that a lot of teens go and use those services to get help for a friend because they don't know what to say, they don't know what to do. And so those are a great resource. In addition to, this is an unbiased third-person party. They can help you work through situations yourself if you are unsure of what to do. So there are resources out there beyond Montgomery County. And so even if there's a friend or a neighbor who's struggling, there are other resources out there that you can reach out to provide some support for them as well.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. For our next question, we have talked about going to a trusted adult. If I don't have a trusted adult, is it possible to get help?
So I'd like to offer some information there. So you may be aware that just recently the law was changed in Maryland that individuals as young as the age of 12 can seek mental health services without the awareness or the consent of their parent. And so while the law is also under review for additional sort of revisions in the coming legislative session, all private providers, I think, in Montgomery County and agencies have met and discussed this and do have resources in place and ability to, if someone calls just looking for therapy and they are able as 12 and up to be able to request services, we can accommodate individuals who are seeking services who don't feel like they can talk to anybody at school or talk with their parents about that. There are some limitations with that law or that rule. One of them being that psychiatric medication cannot be provided to anyone unless their parent is aware of that. So, but you can be sure, and we do have therapists at JESSA especially trained to work with individuals who are in therapy without the knowledge of their parents to figure out ways they can be supported and even engage and build support in their life or in their family where they can include other people in sort of meeting their mental health needs or being aware of mental health needs they may be struggling with. So there are ways, if you feel like you don't have anyone to speak to, in addition to what other panelists have said about the hotlines and so forth, that you can access mental health services if you are 12 years and above without parents having to give permission.
The school and community youth services, which are some of the funded DHHS funded therapy, they have a lot of experience with that. And so it can be going to the school counselor and it can be saying, maybe I want therapy, and then being able to consent, as Joe was saying, consent yourself to the therapy. Sometimes if you feel like your family just wouldn't understand about therapy, would not support you being in therapy. I know one of the reasons that the law was changed was for LGBTQ plus youth, so that they could also get the therapy or support that they needed without maybe having to disclose to their parents what the reason was, or if they had disclosed and their parents were not supportive, of still being able to get that support themselves. So as I said, the school and community youth services will provide therapy in the school setting to youth who consent for the therapy themselves.
Thank you all. What are some strategies to help manage time? Who can I meet with to get tips and tricks to help manage my time?
I can take that one. So a few things that come to mind, and one of which over the past year and a half, people probably heard talk a lot of, is establishing a routine. So having something every day to look forward to, knowing that at certain time intervals, something will happen that gets people in kind of the mode of they know what's coming next. Another is prioritizing. So something that I do personally is I make a lot of lists, and I'll revise my lists and make new lists. And something on like days when I personally feel pretty overwhelmed, I'll try to think, okay, what are the top 3 most important things for me to do? And make sure I do those, as well as trying to find time in my day every day to do something nice for myself. So something that we talk about with our clubs as kind of an icebreaker is what we call our phone analogy. So we are constantly plugging in our devices, our computers. Sometimes our computers don't even work if they're not plugged into the wall. And so if we start to think of ourselves as needing a charge, there's a lot that goes into our own personal charge, our mood, our energy, what we want to do in a day, how productive we feel. And so kind of developing a sense of self-awareness, like where is my charge right now? Am I, below 50? Do I need to do something to recharge myself? Do I need to pull back from maybe some things that I'm engaging in? And then in terms of someone to speak to about this, I'd say maybe someone who is an older sibling or someone who you think is pretty organized, maybe a parent, maybe even next time you see your counselor talking about some time management strategies that maybe work for them or that they've seen work for other students.
I love that example, Catherine. That's so awesome about being plugged in and where you are in your charge. My other thought is that we not necessarily doing it alone. So time management can be difficult for anyone, including adults. And so do you have a friend that can help you with it? It's like having an accountability buddy. So do you have a friend, as Catherine was saying, who's maybe very organized? Do you work with them and do you give each other reminders on time management or how long to spend on things? It can be a sibling, a friend, a parent, someone in your faith community who can maybe help you with that. So it'd be sharing, I want to work on this, or I want to do a little bit better at this. And so do they send you a text, checking in on how you're doing with it? Do you set a timer on your phone? Do you text them, hey, have you done your hour of so-and-so today? So know that you don't necessarily have to do it alone, that you can get support and you can also support someone else in it and do it together.
Thank you. Our next question. Are good grief groups only for students or just for elementary students? What is available for older students and adults?
I'll take that. So our good grief clubs are actually for all of K through 12 MCPS. And so they are run for whatever age group is in that school. And sometimes we'll have, like for high school, sometimes we might have like just a 9th and 10th grade group, or we might have a 9th through 12th grade group, depending on how many students are available to participate in the group. So groups are usually about 6 to 8 students, and it's the school counselor who will identify those students and help form the group. And for older adult students or adults, I would say we offer adult bereavement support services. And that would be for anyone 18 and up. And that is a space where it's all online and people can meet and receive peer-to-peer adult support. And again, I would also emphasize if you have 18, 19-year-old who may not be in MCPS, but is still within the home, very much part of the family system, our family night workshops are a great way to get everyone together. That is meant to be for parents and children, regardless of age. And that's a time to really foster family communication and dialogue around the death or the loss.
Thank you so much. I've helped facilitate several of those groups and they're fantastic. I do want to add that if you're interested in any of the workshops, your school counselors will have all of those resources available to you. All right, for our next question, what kinds of actions or behaviors would be considered bullying? What should you do if someone's bothering you repeatedly?
All right, I can take that one. And so when we're looking at bullying is usually a type of behavior or a type of form of abuse that occurs between someone who is engaging in the abusive behavior and a victim who has little power compared to the person or the bully who is engaging in these acts. Bullying can be both verbal, it can be physical, it can be psychological or social. So like verbal bullying is calling somebody names, physical bullying like hitting, pushing, shoving, spitting, tripping, taking their belongings. And so psychological social could be like saying like, you can't be our friends, or social exclusion, or taunting, spreading rumors about them. And then with cyberbullying, that is how do you engage in both verbal and psychological bullying online and via text. And so with that, and bullying occurs, it's not just usually like a single occurrence, but it's repeated occurrences that happen. And so if you feel like you are being bullied, or you see of someone who is being bullied, or if you see someone who is like, you notice like one of your friends or classmates or someone that you know is being victimized, it's important for folks to be able to stand up. So we call like those who are watching bullying happening, those are what we call like the bystanders. In many bullying prevention initiatives, you try to teach kids how to be upstanders, meaning how do you stand up for those who don't have a voice. So because typically the victim doesn't have power. And the bully has power over them. But who has the most power in these situations? It's the bystanders. And so when bystanders stand up, they take the power away from the bully in order to allow for the victim to be able to go forth and get the support that they need due to this. And so we really want kids, when you're seeing things happening, so let's say if you're seeing something online, so don't spread it, don't share, don't retweet, don't go say, oh, look at this, what happened with your friend, go get an adult. You can indicate it on the social media platform. If you see something, like you can mark it as something that is offensive or abusive. And so that social media provider can go back and look at it. Also take a screenshot of it, because a lot of times what they'll do, they'll say something, like the bully will say something online, then they'll delete it. And so unfortunately that damage has been done once they post it, but then you don't have any evidence of it. So if you see some of that, take a screenshot, don't retweet it, don't share it, but share it with the adults so that the adults can come back and look and see what's going on in order to address it. Because a lot of times people feel like, well, if this is happening at home and it's online, they can't do anything for me at school. But you can. If it impacts the way that the child is able to go to school, to learn, to engage with students at school, it can have what's called like a nexus or a tie to what's happening at school. And they potentially could be disciplined due to what they're doing online. So the schools, we really have a vested interest in wanting to know what's going on with bullying, because we know that bullying happens in every school across America. It happens between, let's say, 20 to 33% of the student population, and is highest between 6th and 8th grade, which is middle school. And so we want to make sure that all schools know what to do if you receive a report about bullying. We want our students to know if you see someone who's experienced bullying or you're experiencing bullying, to tell us. And again, the Maryland State Schools tip line is a way for you to be able to report anonymously if you feel like you're scared of saying something, because a lot of times people don't report because they're afraid that the bully is going to attack them next. And so, but this is a way, if you don't feel comfortable filling out the bullying reporting form, if you don't feel comfortable going and telling an adult or your parent or someone directly, you can use the anonymous tip line system as a way of reporting when these things happen. And again, we have MCPS staff like myself and others who receive those tips, and we work with the building administrators for them to conduct the investigation on bullying.
Thank you, Dr. Conley. So we've had several questions about bullying. What do I do if I see someone being stalked? Is that a different type of bully?
Well, stalking is it is a way when somebody is harassing them, like usually when you're stalking them, like you like them in some way, and that the other person is not giving you the attention that you want back, and you have this uber focus on this individual. And so stalking can be very dangerous, and also potentially can be a criminal act. And so if you know of someone who is being stalked, it's very important for you to get help from an adult. We may need to contact the police. We may need to, in MCPS, we have a behavior threat assessment process. And so when a situation like stalking is occurring, like this is someone who potentially may want to do harm to the person whom they're stalking. And so we go through the behavior threat assessment process in order to see, you know, like where are they on what we call the pathway of violence? Where are they in terms of like if they want to do harm to the person that they're stalking, or like what is the reason why they're doing this? And so because stalking can be really scary to the person who is being stalked. And a lot of times the person who is engaged in the stalking doesn't understand that their behavior is scary. And so what can we do to work with the intended target who is being stalked in order to get them the intervention supports that they need to make sure that they feel safe? What can we do to work with the subject of the person who is doing the stalking to help them to understand that their behavior is not appropriate? Their behavior could potentially lead to criminal, like them being arrested or something due to what's going on with that behavior. And especially when we start to see these things as students start to learn and engage in dating when they get into either middle school or high school. And so if you're seeing this, the school's behavior threat assessment team will come together, review what's happening, gather information, and determine what are the supports that are needed in order to make sure that everyone continues to be safe. And so if you are seeing stalking occurring, or you know of a friend or you are being stalked, please make sure to tell an adult. And if your families, if you talk to your parents or other family members about this, they may contact the police about it. And if it's happening at school, it's important for you to share with what's happening at school with the administration, and so that they can look into this, conduct an investigation as well. Because again, unfortunately, we have seen situations of stalking that have led to someone being injured or potentially killed. And so we want to make sure that if you see this happening, it's very important for you to share that information with us so that we can get all parties involved the help that they need.
Thank you, Dr. Connolly. What services are available for older adults? My adult parents live with me now, and their needs are different from my children's needs.
That's a great question. So Jessa offers mental health services specifically for senior adults age 55 and up. We have folks that are trained specifically to work with this population that may have very different needs than other folks. And so we actually work with adults and seniors to provide mental health services and access to services, particularly if there are seniors that are homebound. We are able to connect them to mental health services. We have a range of other kinds of services for older adults as well, including care management, as well as connecting them to resources that may help them sustain themselves aging in place or in the community. So we do have a wide variety of programs, and you can check it out at our website, jessa.org, for seniors that wish to access mental health services. We also support adult caregivers of seniors. So for individuals that are supporting their aging parent, either in their home or in the community, that we also provide support groups and access to services for those individuals that may be struggling or need to know how to best support and help a parent as they age in place.
Thank you. How long can we see therapists or counselors? Do you come to school or do we have to go to you?
Great question. So first, as far as whether counselors come to school or do you go to them, it depends on the services that you're receiving. So through Linkages to Learning or school-based youth services, and I know through JESSA, through the programs they provide, that those are all school-based. So the counselor, the therapist is at the school, seeing the student on school property, so they can just pull you out of class, have a therapy session, you can go back to school. It eliminates the transportation barrier sometimes. A lot of times if you're seeing a counselor through private insurance, you may be going to their office for services. There are other agencies that will have counselors and therapists who come to the school and see the student at the school. And then these days with virtual and teletherapy, there's that option as well. Maybe not having to go somewhere and seeing your therapist through the screen, through Zoom or other platforms for teletherapy. So there's a lot of options available. As far as how long you're seeing a therapist, a lot of times when you begin with your therapist, you will talk about, what's bringing you to therapy, what your goals are, what you want to work on. And then usually you can remain in therapy as you work on those goals. So if you have a goal to, maybe reduce your anxiety, because you're having a lot of anxiety and stress, you can work with that therapist until the anxiety, you've had the coping skills, you don't have the same, level of anxiety. And at that point, maybe it seems like a good time to end therapy with them. If maybe other things have come up, maybe your anxiety is better, but you had a death in the family and you're dealing with a lot of depression. Do you stay in therapy to deal with that depression? So it's really a relationship that you have with the counselor or therapist to determine how long to stay in therapy based on what you want to work on, based on how much they're affecting you in your life.
And I would like to add that there are some agencies that do home-based services. And so those are counselors and therapists that will go to your home to do therapy. And that also eliminates the barrier of transportation. And that when you call an agency, those are questions that you can ask. So what are the type of services? Do you do face-to-face? Do you do virtual? Are you school-based? Will you come to my home? What are the hours? Those are all questions that you can ask before making the decision of whether to pursue services at that clinic or with that particular therapist.
I'd also like to add as well that when you speak with a clinician or a therapist and you do develop goals, as Kristen was saying, it's important to also ask the clinician or the therapist how you might measure those goals so that you know and the therapist knows what does it look like when we're done, or what does it look like when that goal is achieved? At JESSA, we work hard to ensure that every time you meet with a clinician or a therapist, that you actually are reviewing your treatment plan and saying, well, how are we doing with our goal? Do we think we're making progress? And how are we measuring success along the way? And those are really two important elements to a person-centered approach and a strengths-based approach, that when you're looking for a clinician, asking them about their comfort level using those kinds of approaches, or how they demonstrate that they're person-centered, might also be helpful in terms of understanding how long you might be in therapy, or how they might talk with you about the goals and the challenges that you're trying to address.
Thank you all. Our next question is, what if I know someone is planning suicide within an hour? It's a very urgent situation. What is the hotline number to call?
Well, that's a complicated question. You can always call the hotline. The Everymind hotline, Montgomery County hotline is 301-738-2255, or the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-TALK, and it's going to be 988 soon. But if you know it's imminent and the person has the ability to do it, I would call either the crisis center or 911. Just to make sure that that person's life is safe. But the hotline can also help you with that. We can warm transfer you. But the crisis center is open 24/7. It's 240-777-4000. And if somebody's going to do it soon, it's best that we get somebody out to them. There's mobile crisis teams as soon as possible. If it's in the school building, obviously, let somebody in the school know as soon as possible as well, like an adult.
Thank you. Our next question, are there services for students and adults who don't speak English?
Yes, there are. So there's a lot of services, definitely in Spanish. I know through linkages and school and community youth services, a lot of the therapists are bilingual English-Spanish because of just the schools that we work in. That's the predominant language. So the family case management, the therapy, the community school coordination, those are all in, most of them are in English and Spanish.
for those who are looking for grief support services, our family night workshops are run both in English and Spanish, so they're interpreted. And for our Good Grief Clubs, we have run groups solely in Spanish, and we can do both. We have volunteers who are bilingual.
And again, I just want to echo that when you're calling these agencies, that is also a question that you can ask. What are the languages that you speak? Are there any providers that can speak this language?
All right, this question is open to all of our panelists. How many schools do you all work in? Which schools are they? And how do we get access to your services if you don't work in our school?
Sure.
I'll start. I'll start. So for Be the One, we are actually in all 223 schools in regards of information. So we provide a lot of community awareness around mental health and substance use prevention. And so we're currently in the process of actually recruiting young people to become youth ambassadors within Montgomery County to kind of be the voice of prevention when it comes to mental health awareness, substance use prevention, as well as suicide prevention, just to educate their peers, have a voice to kind of impact change when it comes to policy, when it comes to creating community awareness campaigns, any kind of outreach and efforts, just trying to lessen the stigma when it comes to mental health and substance use, spark the conversations, and just become leaders and ambassadors for the community, and help you to even develop those leadership skills to speak to your peers when it comes to those different issues and topics. So if you're interested in being a youth ambassador for Montgomery County, Be the One youth ambassador, you can definitely email us at yap@montgomerycountymd.gov. And all you have to type is "I'm interested," and we'll send you the flyer and the application to apply. And we're currently looking for any youth in Montgomery County that's interested in letting their voice be heard.
For Linkages to Learning and School and Community Youth Services, I'll put a link for Linkages to Learning. Our website will list all of the schools where we are. For School and Community Youth Services, it's 4 different agencies that administer that. So I'll put the names in the chat for them. And then for School and Community Youth Services, you don't actually have to attend an MCPS school. They have a catchment area. So there's an up county, mid county, down county. So if you do not have insurance or have, as I said, trouble accessing services through your insurance, then they could provide services to you. I'll put them in the chat.
And for the Good Grief Clubs, we have the ability to run them in any MCPS school. And so if you have experienced the death of a loved one, a friend or family member, you're not the only one. So we would definitely say contact your school counselor, because chances are there's somebody else going through the same thing in your school. And the school counselor can really help identify everybody and put together a group. And then when the school counselor has the students, then they contact us, and then we work with the school counselor to have one of our facilitators come in and start running that group.
And for the Jessa Mindcraft program, we're in 16 schools, and I'll put those schools in the chat as well.
Currently, our Minds Matter is located in 17 high schools in Montgomery County, and we're looking to expand. So if you do have a club at your school, reach out to your school counselor. They can get you in touch, attend club meetings. And if you don't have a club at your high school yet, you can apply to start a club. We accept rolling applications at any time for MCPS schools, since we have a partnership with MCPS. And to start a club, really, you just need to pass it by your school administration, identify a school counselor who can be a club sponsor, and some student leaders.
Hotlines are free for everybody, no matter what your age, what school you go to, where you are.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry, go ahead.
And I was going to say that there are outside providers, so community providers that go into school. So talking to the counselor, I work at Child and Adolescent Behavioral Health, and we have clinicians who are placed at different high schools and middle schools. And I know that there's other mental health providers that if the school allows, they can go in and see the students at the individual school where you are. So there may not be a specific linkages program or another group, but there are providers who can go into a school. It's just a matter of the school has a relationship with that agency. And that's a question that your guidance counselor would be able to answer.
Thank you so much. And since we're nearly out of time, here is one final question. Again, for all panelists, what kinds of problems do each of your groups work on?
The grief clubs that we run in the schools, they are specific to bereavement, which means a death. And that doesn't have to be specific to the family. It could be the death of a friend. It could be the death of a peer, of a role model or a mentor. It could be the death of somebody who is in a different country. But as long as the student has had a connection with that person and is grieving that loss, we really want to be able to support that student. And we know that by the age of 18, 20% of children have experienced the death of a loved one. So we really want to emphasize that you're not the only one. There are other students who are grieving, and the more you are able to ask for support, the better we are able to support you.
I'll take a quick run at this. Our unit provides confidential information, support, counseling, and coaching for all MCPS employees and their family members. And we have 24/7, 365 access. We also work on responding to crises, workplace issues, supervisory training, et cetera, et cetera. So we're able to help anybody who's struggling in the workplace or just wants to increase their mental health skills. We're happy to help. Thanks.
At JESSA, we offer services for individuals as young as 4 years old and as old as 99 years old. We offer trauma-based, trauma-focused services, individuals who have experienced trauma. We also offer several evidence-based practices, including parent-child interactional therapy, which is a family therapy approach designed for young children ages 2 through 7 to work with their parents in how parents can help kids manage challenging behaviors. We also, as I mentioned, offer cognitive behavioral therapy and DBT, and we offer individual, family, and group.
For linkages to learning, so linkages to learning is in elementary schools and some middle schools, and serving issues, trauma, depression, anxiety, also school refusal at times. And then definitely working with families, so on family issues, parenting supports, and then the community, school and community services, same thing, trauma, anxiety, depression, general stresses that the student may be coping with.
And at Child and Adolescent Behavioral Health in Silver Spring and Rockville, we work with children ages 5 through 18, and the only requirement is that they be Montgomery County residents. And we provide mental health services as well as psychiatric services.
Our Minds Matter clubs work to raise awareness about mental health in high school communities, as well as to deconstruct the stigma around mental health.
And in addition to the work we do with Be the One, with the Be the One initiative, we also have ASAP groups, which are adolescent substance use prevention groups, which teach coping skills, which can pretty much go across, coping with, SUD, with substance use disorder, but also mental health as well. So it's a psychoeducational group for adolescents, middle school, as well as high school.
And the hotline is available to everybody. It's free and confidential. I just remind you guys that you don't have to be in crisis. You don't have to be suicidal to call the hotline or the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. You just want to have a kind person listen. You can reach out to us anytime, 24/7. And we're also on text and chat, because I know that's how most folks communicate these days. And we're happy to have a conversation with you that way as well.
All right. Well, I really want to thank all of our panelists for being with us today. Your perspectives and experience have been so valuable to our students and our families and staff that are watching our virtual event today. Just hearing from you about all of the resources that you have available, the different types of mental health support that you have available for our students and our families. From talking about the different types of, intensive therapeutic supports that you provide, all the way to our student-led Our Minds Matter clubs that are occurring in our schools. And I'm very excited. I heard Catherine say that, we're looking into starting them in our middle schools next. So I'm sure we're very excited to hear about that. And our supports, especially through our EAP program for our families, not families, from our employees, and in support for them to be able to potentially support our employees' families, and that support that's there. And I think that especially with the collaboration you have with our 2 EAP specialists in Kipro, that support is just so needed right now with everything that people have experienced. I mean, hearing the themes of the different types of mental illnesses, experiences with trauma, experiences with grief and loss, experiences with substance use. I mean, there's just so many ways of everyone to receive support in Montgomery County that I really hope that for those who are listening in, if you have a particular concern, to just, you're hearing some of these resources, and to please reach out to these agencies in order to get the support for yourself or someone in your family. And especially, again, I know we've mentioned this several times and they've put that into the chat. If you or a loved one is experiencing a mental health crisis or emergency now, the Montgomery County Crisis Hotline is on rolling on your screen. It is also in your chat. If you are in need of immediate assistance, to please go forth and to get that help that's needed. And if you are in an immediate need, call 911 so that help can come out to your home and provide support to you as needed. Okay, so I want to make sure we also highlight our Be Well 365 website. And as Mr. Davis mentioned earlier, our Be Well 365 website has tons of resources and information, especially if you're looking for a mental health provider who works in your school. That website has lists of different providers that are available in our schools, your counselors, your school psychologists, if your school has a social worker, ESOL transition counselors, PPWs, PCCs, our parent community coordinators, and our ESOL, school-based ESOL counselors. I mean, there are resources that are available to your school, to your student for free that we provide within our schools. I also want to remind folks about additional resources that are available for our families on these and many topics. They're all available on our Mental Health Awareness Week website. And again, that site is mcpsmentalhealth.org. And also, we want to make sure that for our students, please do not forget about those SSL hours. If you were able to watch each of our live events, plus watch 5 of the videos on the mental health awareness site, you can get up to 11 SSL hours. And we know that those service learning hours are needed for graduation. So please make sure to go fill out those forms and get those hours so that many of our students need, especially since we've been in quarantine for so long. long as last year and the year before. And as people are starting to get out, this is another opportunity virtually for you to get SSL hours without leaving your home. So we're very excited about that. Also, please take a minute to fill out the evaluation and the survey for this event. It really does mean a lot for us to hear your feedback about today. It helps us in our planning for next year's resource fair. So please provide your feedback. We do read them, and we will take that your feedback and insights into this to help us with future planning. And excuse me, lastly, I do want to thank Julia, Toria, Mr. Davis, Lindsay, Cherie, and all of the people behind the scenes working with our staff, all of our chat moderators who are our psychologists, counselors, ESOL transition counselors, PPWs, and others who are helping with the to moderate our YouTube chat. Of course, our MCPS TV staff who are behind the scenes, making sure that our events are going off without a hitch, and especially to our week-long producer, Chris Wallace. Thank you for all of your help as you've been managing and working with everyone, including our producers for our Tuesday and Wednesday events. Eric and Todd, thank you again for that. And our panelists who are here volunteering their time to provide support, thank you. And also, I want to give a big shout out to our coordinator of psychological services, Miss Michelle Palmer, because without her this year, who knows, she has really been the rock that put all of the events, all of the activities on the website all together. So a big shout out to Michelle for all of her help this week, because really, I mean, I cannot describe enough just how much we have relied on her throughout this time. And of course, we want to thank our viewers for joining us for our virtual Mental Health Awareness Week resource fair. So, and be well, be aware, take care, and bye-bye.